Well, good afternoon. This is Phil Gibson with the Unity Group at Keller Williams, and today I am talking to Mike. This is crazy. So, anyway, with the Altitude Group at Primerica, and we're going to talk today. Mike has been gracious enough to give us his time to chat about financial, not only financial services, but how their group, Mike and his wife Anita, work together and how they can support people in achieving their goals, not only in the investment side, but also just getting ready, whether it's through budgeting or goal planning or whatever that might look like. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you and Anita have been doing.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So, our story kind of started as the typical, Main Street American that was just working the job. And unfortunately, we never really get much of a financial education in our system, right? A lot of times, like it's, we're supposed to learn these things from our parents. And the things that we don't learn from our parents, we learn in school. But a lot of times our parents don't know these things or how money works. And the schools definitely don't teach them, right? Like we never get to learn how compound interest works into retirement, or how to get the best rate on your mortgage when you go buy your first home, or how to save on taxes. Like we learn none of these things. We just kind of learn them the hard way. We kind of get out into the world after high school or after college, and we just kind of hit our head against the wall. And that was us, to a T. And our story kind of began when, I've always been as a person that wasn't necessarily satisfied with just working the job all the time. I wanted to do something outside of that. I wanted to do real estate investment. I wanted to get out there and hustle a little bit to make some money, right? And so we did our first real estate investment in the worst possible time in history. Okay, so we bought our first place June 1st of 2007 as a fix and flip. Right. And that was back in the day where you could leverage money like you wouldn't believe without really a lot of questions being asked. You could call down to a bank and just say, hey, I want X amount of dollars. And they say, okay, you've been a longstanding customer. Here you go. Boom. And it was in our account. And 2 months later, when we went to go put that house on the market, once we got it all done, everything crumbled. The whole financial crisis, the lending crisis started right then and there. And we quickly found ourselves in a position where we had not just student loan debt, not just credit card debt, but all this construction debt on top of everything. And we're like, oh my gosh, like, what do we do? We're just drowning. We're drowning in debt. And we had to find a way to really learn about how money works. And what we found out was it was a lot of it's right here between the six inches between your ears. It's a mindset that we're never taught. If we learn some like basic principles and we're giving some tools and some guidance, anybody and everybody can do this. But the problem is our traditional institutions out there aren't necessarily helping people. And so we just started learning. And we started listening to people like Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, and just started like doing some budgeting. It's a crazy thing is we've never done budgeting in our entire lives. And when we first started looking at that and figuring out where the money's going, that was a reality check, number one, right? Like, it's amazing what we're spending money on that we may or may not need, right? I'm not an advocate to eliminate everything out of life, right? Like we need to have some fun, right? Otherwise it's going to be a crash diet that nobody sticks to. But there's a lot of times there's these quick wins that we can have in our budgeting, right? So, some of the things that we found in our budgeting was cable, like, sure. Do we need to have cable? Like we just kind of looked at it and said, hey, like, yeah, there's some cool shows, but are we happy with Netflix? Okay, we're happy with Netflix. Let's get rid of the cable. And, just kind of like Starbucks coffee, right? Like, it's our gourmet coffee. We like it, but like, how much do we really need it? I'm not saying eliminate it completely, but So we ended up investing in a nicer coffee machine at home and saving some money in the long run. So, and then all of a sudden, boom, we have a nicer coffee machine, and we had, better coffee more times than we did, spending it at Starbucks, right? And
Sure.
I think there's a lot of these things, Phil, that we can kind of look at when we write them down. And some of the tools that we give people is a budgeting sheet that they can just kind of look at the different categories and see where the money's going. Because Phil, do you know what happens if we all have a certain amount of dollars that come in, but if we don't tell it where to go, do you know what happens to it?
Goes away.
Yeah, it disappears, poof, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens. So we gotta tell our money what to do. And so, I like to say rule number one is you got to pay yourself though too, right? Because
Right.
there's a power of compounding interest that happens down the road with time and money. Okay, so this is a concept that we teach people. But first of all, like we got to take care of some of the housekeeping stuff, right? And that's that budgeting piece. But we want to achieve the goals that we have in life, right? So what we do is we figure out like what are the goals and dreams that people really have. And what we found a lot of times is that people want like property. They want to buy a house. They want to have that sense of ownership, right?
Sure.
And I think that's such a human thing, and I think that we all need that. And so through what we went through with that house, everything falling apart, and us not hitting the goals that we had at that time, we had to kind of relearn this stuff, right? And so budgeting was a huge thing, but we also have tools that will help people go from where we're at point A to point B. How do we get there the fastest, most direct way? So we have a GPS that we help people with, and we just plug in the destination. So for example, Phil, if it's, hey, I want to buy a house, well, what do we need to do, right? How do we need to get there? And debt's a big problem, right? That's a roadblock that so many people have, and we had that too. Now I was saying that we had student loans, credit card debt, all this construction debt on top of everything else. We had a lot of debt. Well, we have a debt strategy that we just teach people. It's not a product. It's just literally we show people, hey, if we pay it off in this order, we're going to get out of debt years earlier, saving them tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest payments. But the problem is, Phil, is that too many people go into debt too early in life and get out too late. And they give all that money to the banks and the insurance companies. And we don't want that to happen. Okay. And sure. So the sooner people get out of that debt situation, the better off they're going to be down the road, because then they can start putting more money away. But we always want to say, like, we want to pay ourselves first too. So we do want to start putting something away, because time and money compounds over time, right? And that's a huge deal. And so our GPS shows people exactly what they need down the road, not to just achieve the short-term goals of getting to the home, but what does the future look like for retirement, right? And I think a lot of younger people might not think about that so much, but we need to start thinking about that.
Right.
We need to start thinking about like what does that look like, and how do we protect our family in the meantime of getting there. And so we'll walk people through this process. And then so we have budgeting, we have a debt elimination strategy, but we also talk about that protection piece that I was just mentioning there, because I think like when it comes to protecting our family, we want to make sure that our family's in a good position if we're here or not, right, Phil?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so here's the thing what I have to say about this. When I'm talking about life insurance, I'm talking about income protection. Okay. I'm not talking about an investment plan. I'm not talking about tax-free money in retirement. I'm not talking about those things, because there's better vehicles that will get people there a lot faster with a lot more money that we help people with. Okay. But when I'm talking about life insurance, I'm talking about a product that's going to be inexpensive, that protects the family in case of the what ifs, right? Mm-hmm. Now, as a husband, as a business owner, as somebody that cares about my family, I want to make sure that I put them in the best possible situation if I'm around, if I'm not, right? Like I have goals, I have aspirations, I have dreams. And if something happens to me, I want my family to still achieve those same goals, right?
Right.
And so I have some coverage to make sure that, hey, if something were to happen to me, my family's not going backwards. They're either staying the same or they're being pushed ahead, and they don't have to worry about it because I took care of it. So I think that's a big thing, especially somebody that is looking to purchase a property, a house, right?
Right.
Moving from that stage of, maybe being single, maybe, in a relationship, maybe just got married and they're buying their first home. Well, now they have more responsibility, and more responsibility means to have insurance, right? But not all insurance is created equal. And so there's definitely some gotchas in the industry with a lot of products and services out there that we help people navigate around, making sure that they're putting their money in the best possible place to help them, achieve their goals and dreams.
So if we're talking about, if we looked at the first time, let's say a first time home buyer, to your point, is the suggestion, maybe they have a little bit of debt, credit card debt, auto loan debt, whatever, maybe some student loan debt. Is the suggestion to possibly reduce that significantly, get rid of it all the way before you start, digging into maybe that home ownership that you suggested? There's a lot of information that you've mentioned here to unpack. And I guess where's the starting point for, say, that, individual that's maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, to your point, maybe in a relationship, newly married, whatever that looks like. And now they're getting ready to, kind of move forward in their life as to far as whatever that looks like. What's the starting point from your perspective for your organization?
Yeah, great question, Phil. So we do an analysis that like really lays out like what the entire picture looks like. And when it comes to that debt situation, we want to look at it really closely, because the last thing we want to do is put somebody in a position where they get into a home, but now they're house poor, or because they have too much other debt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but maybe eliminate it completely is overkill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to balance that and make sure that we put people in the best possible situation. And a lot of times what I find is that, people want to buy a house, but maybe they're not always in a financial situation to do so. And a lot of times it has to do with that debt. And so what we do is we help eliminate some of that debt right off the bat by freeing up money in people's budget. Okay. We can on average free up $200 to $600 every single month to start, knocking out some of that debt, putting it for start saving it for a down payment. And there's other things that we need to pay for during that process. There's moving costs, there's inspection fees, there's all kinds of, stuff that goes along with buying a house that a lot of times we get caught up in the excitement. We never think about those things, right? But
right.
I've purchased a few houses in my time, and the first couple, I never really thought about that either. And it's like, oh man, that was more expensive than I anticipated. So we want to put people in a really great position, preparing them for that. And the debt elimination part is key, but we'll make sure that people are in the right position. And it's probably not eliminating all the debt. Maybe it is, but for the vast majority of people, it's just getting it to a point where they're in a better position, where it's manageable, and they have once they get into the house, they still have enough money where they can still eliminate that debt.
Right. When you're doing some of the budgeting or the debt elimination, you're analyzing this. What's the biggest aha that people have, when they're looking at some of this stuff? They say to you or your wife, hey, didn't know, or wow, that's a big surprise. What's the number one thing you run across in that area?
Yeah, the number one is when they see how fast they can get out of debt. I mean, it's always exciting for me when I put these together because everybody's like they want to get out of debt. They hate the debt. They know that they're being taken advantage of by those banks, right, with the credit cards.
Right.
And they don't want to be in that situation. And so people oftentimes are paying, more and trying to get out and doing their very best. But by just having a little strategy, we get people out years earlier, saving them sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to see that, like that expression in their face when they see it and they're like, oh my gosh, I can be out of debt that soon is priceless. I mean, it's just.
Yeah. That's yeah, I mean, well, and it's probably when you're able to do that too, it's a big stress load off, I'm sure, when you're able to move through that process. Yeah. That's great. So how long, to kind of do this analysis, how long does that normally take for you or your wife to sit down with somebody and kind of go through that process?
Really like 30, 40 minutes.
Okay.
To sit down, ask some questions, go through, just the analysis part. Sometimes it, depending on the situation, sometimes it takes a little longer. Sometimes it's not even that long.
Mm-hmm.
But really it's just, acquiring the information that's critical to really get the compass and that GPS set up so we can turn it on and really show people where and how to achieve their financial goals.
Okay. And then I guess one of the other questions what's the cost for all this stuff? I mean, a lot of the things you're talking about, coming out of the gate, it would seem like it's going to be fairly expensive, to get all these things done. So what's the cost?
Phil, I appreciate you asking because honestly, what I love about our company and how we do this is that we never charge for our time. We never charge to put a plan together for people. And so people always ask, like, so how did you get paid? How does that even make sense if, you're doing all this work, that you don't charge for? Well, I'll tell you, because there's always opportunities and I'm transparent. Okay. There's always opportunities to put somebody in a better position with the different products and services that people are already buying and already involved in. And so when we can find, better rates of return on investments, when we can, find better life insurance products, when we can just put people in a better position with those things, that's when we get paid. And only when it's a value to the client, never the other way around. And so that's what I love.
Yeah. Well, and I know in the conversations we've had before, one of the things I appreciated by the fact is, if there's areas in that arena that you can't help people, you're not going to try to push them into a product that is not advantageous for them. So, I appreciated your transparency on that as well. I thought that was pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do people go about contacting you or, getting an appointment set up so they can start to establish their objectives, their financial goals?
Yeah. So we have a website. It's altitudegroup.us. My phone number is 303-775-3138. You guys can reach out to me directly. I'd love to have a conversation and see where we can go from there, what we can do to help.
That's great. And I'll be including this stuff in the trailer on this video so people can capture that and reach out to Mike and set up a time. If you're interested in, learning more about what they do, this has been a real quick synopsis. Mike can certainly dig in and get a lot deeper, I'm sure, in conversations with you, particularly as it pertains to your goals and objectives. I think, that plan that you've talked about is pretty set for the individual based on what they want to achieve. So that's really good.
Absolutely. Yes.
Hey, one last question before we kind of end this piece. You mentioned early in the video that, a lot of people, most of us, unless your parents or somebody were really actively supporting you and training you on this kind of stuff. Why do you think we haven't done more to educate people on this, I know you can Google, you can probably find 100 different things out there. But I've always found that if you can talk to somebody like yourself with this expertise, you're going to get a lot farther than if you're trying to do it on your own, unless you're just a certain type of personality that can achieve it doing it that way. But I find more people, if they get an opportunity to talk to somebody like yourself or your wife, they seem to be able to achieve things a little bit quicker. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I mean, we really strive to educate people, and why our society doesn't do that. Well, I think we can all kind of use our imaginations of why, right?
Right.
Why do the banks and the insurance companies walk away with most of the money?
Mm-hmm.
And so we teach, basic concepts like the rule of 72, showing people how to get a much better rate of return on their investments, so the banks and the insurance companies don't walk away with that. And so why isn't it taught in schools? Well, I think it's part of our society and just the materialistic, world that we live in. And I think if we can get a little bit of education, we can, achieve so much more than just having the flashy car now. We can have that the rest of our lives if we plan right, if we learn some of these concepts, and we really just use a little bit of discipline in the beginning, and we don't have to worry about money down the road. And so that's what we're really trying to achieve, is just financial freedom, not having to worry about the am I going to have enough money down the road? We're trying to help people achieve that financial freedom for themselves.
That's great. Well, Mike, thanks a lot. Really appreciate your insight and information related to this topic. I know Beth and I have had, several buyers over the years that have, interest in trying to learn more about this process. And so hopefully this will give them an opportunity. And those out there that are watching this, give them an opportunity to reach out to you and certainly learn more and start developing that path to success and financial freedom. So really appreciate your time today, Mike. And for those of you out there, we really appreciate you watching the Unity Thread. This is a community involvement process where we are trying to connect viewers to people in the community that can serve you in a way that will help you benefit long-term. This is just an example of that. My name is Phil Gibson. I'm with the Unity Group. My wife and I work together. We're primarily down here in selling real estate, both buy and sell on the investment side, and for people that own a home today or looking to sell one. We are in the Denver Southeast area, and just really enjoy working with people and doing this type of stuff where we're education related and working with people like Mike and his wife to continue to support the community. With that being said, we're going to end this video, and thanks again, Mike, and look forward to hearing from anybody. You'll see all the contact information on the trailer of this video. Have a great one.